I really enjoyed season 1 of My Hero Academia, and I didn't know what to expect from season 2, but I was eager to get into it. And I kind of wanted to wrap some other things up before I jumped into that, but people were really eager and kind of in a hurry and encouraging me to go ahead and get to it. And I decided I would do a couple of reactions, do a review, do a few reactions, do a review. So this is the first review. Also, some people have noticed that it's been a minute since I've posted any videos to the channel, and there's a reason for that. I talked about it a little bit in the live stream that I did with Sophia a few days ago, but I know not everybody watches those. But we did have a death in the family. My grandfather passed away. Been taking some time to process that grief, spend a little time with family of my own, try to do some things in my personal life that maybe I'd neglected for a while, and I don't know, going to the funeral and everything just made me think about my duties as a dad, not just an anime dad. So I took a couple weeks off. But I want to see what my opinion was of these first 2 episodes when I break it down to the most memorable points. So let's get to it. So season 2, the first episode, it starts with the aftermath of the attack from the villains onto the hero school, onto UA Academy or UA High School. And Class 1A, I think, is the name of the class that Deku and company are in. And Class 1A, of course, they stick out because they were the ones who were in the thick of the battle. They were the ones that were there fighting the villains. And it's kind of curious, the blend of reactions they get from the other students. Like, some of the students show them admiration, which makes sense. You know, you'd admire your friends who'd been through a tough time. But then what also starts to happen is jealousy, because people who are envious of all the attention they get, or they think, why are they heroes when they just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time? All Might's who saved the day, not Class 1A. So there's a lot of jealousy that comes out too. And most importantly, it's like a big target is painted on the back of the students of Class 1A, because they're like the stars of the school. So if you want to prove that you're really worthy, well, you've got to outperform the stars. So they've got that check mark by their name whenever the chance comes up to try and outdo them or show them up for the classes other than 1A. And we get this interesting and mysterious new character introduced. This old guy who the captions told me on the sub that his name is Gran Torino. And Gran Torino gets a letter from All Might, and it's just this nice little sort of a mystery, but you kind of know what's going on, right? You know, Gran Torino is the hero who mentored All Might. You know, Gran Torino is who passed down that one-for-all power to All Might. At least that's what everything here is telling me. I don't think that's a big mystery, but I do want to learn more about this Gran Torino guy and about his relationship with All Might, and maybe see some flashbacks to when they were first working together and see All Might in Deku's shoes. That could be kind of fun, but at the end of the day, I would say, curious, intrigued by this character of Gran Torino. And even the name Gran Torino, and he's an old man, makes me think of Clint Eastwood, because there was that Clint Eastwood movie, Gran Torino, where he was like this old man who befriended a teenage immigrant child and was helping defend him against his bullies. I don't know if that inspiration has anything to do with the name, or if they're both just named after the same car. But I got a lot of curiosity about this Gran Torino character who's introduced. And I think it's a great choice by the mangaka and by the anime producers. But we find out that the centerpiece for the next story arc, I don't know if it'll be all of season 2, half of season 2, a portion of season 2, but the next big story arc is this competition, a big competition amongst the students with their special quirks. And people pointed out to me that in the anime, they do describe this competition as even bigger than the Olympics. So all eyes of the world are on this competition where these students with their quirks are seeing who's got the right stuff and who's better than who. And I can see how this would be bigger than the Olympics, because it's like the Olympics, but with superpowers. Who wouldn't want to watch that? But I love the whole intramural competition story angle. You know, it comes up in several stories. I just love the not-so-friendly competition. Like everybody forgetting they're supposed to be on the same side, or eventually they're going to need to work together, and just backstabbing and undercutting each other. If you've ever been in really highly competitive programs in school, like I was in a pretty strenuous academic program at a couple points in my life, and there always seemed to be a lot of internal competition and backstabbing, and people that we called gunners that were always gunning for the stardom of the class and to make other people look bad in order to make themselves look good and that kind of thing. So I can appeal to that, but really I think the core of loving this sci-fi, fantasy, speculative fiction, intramural competition, and why perhaps it's so prevalent in stories, because there's a lot of them out there. Well, my appreciation for it, and I suspect a lot of other people's, probably goes back to the novel Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Now, I know Orson Scott Card, not a popular writer. He's, made several homophobic statements in the past, but he's kind of went back on that a little bit. I can't help it. It's an influential story. And when I read it as a kid, I didn't know anything about the author. I just loved Ender's Game, like the novel, not the movie. And I've read the novel a couple times, listened to a couple different versions of the audiobook, and it has the best student versus student intramural action ever. And I just can't help but think that there's some of those influences, not just in My Hero Academia, because this has been around a long time before My Hero Academia, but throughout fiction, particularly speculative fiction, whenever you have that big dog-eat-dog backstabbing intramural competition. Something else that they point out in the anime is that this competition, this intramural, I don't know if it's intramural or intramural, but anyway, this competition is a great chance for students to get noticed by the pros. It can increase their chances of being able to go pro. And I like all this talk because it is a real American scholastic sports analogy, in my opinion. The high school stars want to get noticed by the college recruiters. The college stars want to get noticed by the pro scouts, whether it's football, basketball, ice hockey. I'm sure there's other sports. I'm not necessarily at the top of my game at listing sports, but you get what I'm saying. And we have all this Western, particularly American influence that's seen in My Hero Academia and American scholastic sports. My understanding, I've never lived anywhere but America, but my understanding is scholastic sports are very different outside of America, or at least outside of America and Canada, North America kind of thing. But I do like how it's infused in here and talk about going pro and catching people's attention. And I like that analogy. It works. It's very fitting for superheroes to use that sports analogy. And then, of course, All Might puts some pressure on Deku's shoulders. And All Might, his power is waning. I think that's what waning means. I can't remember what wax means and what wane means. So his power's getting less. How about we just stick with that? And he knows that he's not going to be able to keep up his intimidation because much like Batman talks about the reason he dresses like he does is because villains are a cowardly and superstitious lot. So the image, the reputation, the word of mouth does more to prevent crime than the actual kicking and punching sometimes. And All Might knows he's going to lose his psychological advantage over the villains as they start to discover his power is diminishing. So that's why he says, Deku, you gotta put on a good show here at the intramurals so people know that even when I'm not around anymore, someone who's equal to me, or perhaps even greater, because Deku says this is how I became the greatest hero of all time, right? So anyway, he's putting that pressure on Deku's shoulders. You gotta perform well to send a message to the villains, not to the pros, not to the other heroes, even though it's a good chance to do that. You gotta let the villains know there's always somebody here to crush you when you decide to do evil. We also get to see other aspects of the school, of UA. We get to see these other pathways of study, if you will, because I didn't realize that there were different majors and specialties. I thought everybody was there to learn to be a hero. And that's part of what kept me from jumping into this story for so long, is I thought, well, in the world of 80% of the people, 90% of the people have superpowers, what's the point of being a hero? It's going to be boring. But we find out that that's not the case. The people who are creating this story, the mangaka, the anime creators, they go beyond that. They anticipate that issue. And we get to see, like I said, other pathways of study. Because there are students at UA High School that are learning to use their quirks for support roles. Not just sidekicks. I mean, sidekick's kind of a type of hero, but like actual support roles, like search and rescue and that kind of stuff is what I'm imagining. Maybe intelligence, maybe the guy on the phone saying, hey, watch out, somebody's coming around the corner. I don't know. And then the business majors. I never even thought about all the business that would go in the superhero world. There's got to be so many expenses to account for. There's got to be a lot of government funding, donations in and out and all that kind of thing. So I never even thought about the idea that there'd be business majors in UA. But I guess in this analogy, using the sports analogy, we can think of the heroes, the people in the hero program as the jocks of the school, and the people who aren't in the hero program kind of feel bad that they're not. It's a sense of failing that they didn't make the hero program. So it's like there are two kinds of students. Even though there's more than two pathways, there are two kinds of students. Those in the hero program and those who wish they were in the hero program. And when the competition gets started, I just got to say I'm really blown away by that stadium. I mean, while I'm recording this, I think the World Cup's still going on. I've seen some of those amazing soccer stadiums around the world. They're always impressive. professional football stadiums, college football stadiums here in the U.S. Pretty impressive, but boy, I was blown away by this huge, huge stadium. I love the way it's, got the awning around it. It has that real international football look to it rather than American football. I like how tall it is. I can just imagine 100,000 people are being squeezed in there, and I loved it. I don't know that I've ever seen an animated stadium that just kind of like had the energy of an actual real life stadium to me. They usually seem a little cheesy, and this one seems so good and real and just done convincingly. A strange thing to be blown away by in a story about kids with superpowers, I know, but I love that stadium. I do kind of wonder why an R-rated hero was chosen as the master of ceremonies for the competition, though. This is a competition for high school age children. They bring in an R-rated hero to be the master of ceremonies. Even though she's R-rated, I mean, yeah, she's wearing some tight clothes, but I don't know. Maybe I would say she's PG-13. But do they bring this in? Is this a way for the creators of both the show, or maybe this is true from the manga, I haven't read it, but is this a way to say, hey, this story might be about kids, it might look like kids with superpowers as a children's story, but no, this is a story that can appeal to adults, and we're bringing in the R-rated hero to say, hey, we know there are adults out there watching, and this one's for you. And then I was a little confused when the competition first got started because Bakugou represented the class. And they had elected a class representative, but the class representative is a student government thing. This is a competition person representing, and the reason he's chosen is he has the highest entrance exam, highest exam score, whatever the term they use is. But he did the best on the entrance exams, so he gets to represent the class. And he also stands up there, and he's pretty much a jerk with what he has to say. I'm here to defeat all of you. I'm here to crush you. And I guess that's true to Bakugou's personality, but I was just kind of puzzled when that first happened, but people explained, no, this is like a merit-based thing, not a democratic type thing. And made for an interesting point in the story. Definitely made Bakugou feel more like an internal villain. Like he's not a bad guy per se, but he's sort of an internal source of conflict. But I'm starting to feel more and more like he's going to redeem himself, and in due time, I think we're going to like Bakugou. But Todoroki is a character that really catches my attention here as this game is getting started, because it's becoming clear that Todoroki has a high level of skill, a high level of talent. So why wasn't he the class representative? Like, I'm thinking, how in the world did Bakugou outperform Todoroki on the entrance exams? And that's when I started to remember some things about Todoroki didn't have to take the entrance exam. He was accepted based on a letter of recommendation. Maybe he'd worked as a sidekick. And we do see that his powers are pretty elevated compared to his classmates. So can we talk a little bit about Todoroki? Because currently Todoroki is the closest to being a superhero in this class of students. And it's clear that he's had experience. We find out some reasons why he had that experience. Maybe he's worked a little bit as a sidekick. He's got valuable resources, input, and experiences that the other students don't have yet, and it shows. Like, to me, from what I'm seeing, it looks like this guy's fully polished. Give him a cape and send him out there. But we do learn that he's a second-generation hero, and he has some advantages. And I think this is an interesting look at kind of like privilege a little bit, like Ken Griffey Jr. His dad was Ken Griffey, professional baseball player. So he had a great hitting coach from the time he was born. Not to mention money and resources to devote time to travel ball and the best equipment, the best coaches. And you wonder, would Ken Griffey Jr. have been Ken Griffey Jr. if not for Ken Griffey Sr.? And I start to think these same kind of things about Todoroki here. And is this kind of a comment about privilege and advantages, and some people are just born into a better situation than others? I mean, I was born into a better situation than a lot of people. I was born in a worse situation than a lot of people. That's just the nature of life. There's no way around that. But it's getting us to look at Todoroki. Kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones, the first book in the Song of Ice and Fire. Not the TV show, but the book itself. Maybe it came through in the first season of the show. I don't remember. But Jon Snow, he's at the wall. He's training with all these other new recruits to the Night's Watch. And he's just beating them up. I mean, left and right. He's like the best by far. And he's kind of smug about it. And the other new recruits all end up hating him and wanting to gang up against him. And one of his instructors, one of his leaders or whatever, pulls him aside and says, look, you grew up in a castle. You had a sergeant at arms or whatever you want to call it to teach you how to fight. You got to train in the yard every day. These guys were out pickpocketing for bread and stuff like that. So yeah, of course you can outperform them now, but they're just going to despise you for it. Instead of beating them up, maybe you teach them and mentor them. And I kind of see some of that same weird kind of flow coming through with Todoroki. So I'm real curious to see where he goes in the story, because the way he's positioned now doesn't make sense for what he can do. So he's got to change at some point. Also, when I look at Todoroki, this is a weird thought that probably nobody but me has, but I wonder if perhaps he has Sturge-Weber syndrome, because he has that red spot, which we sometimes call like a nevus flammeus or flaming nevus, something like that. But it can be a vascular condition with the skin when it's around the eye, like it is with Todoroki. It can cause secondary glaucoma or congenital glaucoma in that eye that's affected. So I wonder, like, if we're going to go back to that, if it's something like, despite all my advantages because of the Sturge-Weber, I still always felt like an outcast. I don't know if we're going to explore that or if they'll use the term Sturge-Weber, but when I see it, that's what I think about that red flame nevus around his eye. But as I said before, it's strange to me how Todoroki is positioned in the story. He's not positioned to be the hero or the mentor. He's not positioned to be a villain or the internal conflict. Like, he's not in Bakugou's spot. He's not in Deku's spot. He's not in All Might's spot. But he really deserves a special spot. And right now I feel like he's just another supporting character. But we got to dive into this guy's story more, right? Like, that's got to be part of this season, is finding out how his life maybe isn't as good as we think it is, or maybe it's better than we think it is. I feel like we got to explore him because he has to be positioned better in this story than just the same as all the other classmates. And much to my shock and or awe, Mineta Sticky Balls, his power actually came in handy in the first competition. Because, you know, Todoroki, it's a race, an obstacle course. Todoroki's putting down ice everywhere, slippery as heck. But you know what helps you walk on slippery ice? Sticky balls. So if you've got sticky balls, you are set for an ice race. Go out to the speed skating, throw down your sticky balls and walk on them. I don't know if that's faster than skating or not. I am not a skater. But yes, Mineta, you impressed me by using your sticky balls in a useful manner in that first competition, because I'm going to be honest, I thought you were toast in this competition. But as the competition unfolds, the intramural stuff goes on, and we get to see what happens after this race. What's the next competition? I imagine we're going to have different competitions that favor different sorts of power sets, but I'm eager to see what happens. Definitely eager to see who wins and to comment along the way. And I mean, would it be a good story if the villains don't attack before the end of the competition? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But with that, I'll just apologize again for the delay. Had some unforeseen personal circumstances, but I'm back and I'm at it, and I'll try to do the best I can. And as always, I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you again soon.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. If you might be interested in Patreon perks like early access to videos, uncut reaction videos, ad-free videos, and the opportunity to vote on which anime will be covered in the future, then click on the link in the video description. Thank you.